Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We the People Meeting and Assembly call. It is February 21st, 2018. This group is working hard towards reestablishing constitutionally based government that's centered under our constitutions, both the state and the federal. We have some very simple rules. Everyone is welcome to the call. It's an open call. If you want the floor, say, may I? And then if you're granted the floor, please get right to your point. If you're going to branch the discussion, announce that you are changing the subject and branching the discussion, and then get right to your point. And when you finish your point, say, I yield. And that'll be the signal for the next person that wants the floor. I'd like to start out with just a little bit of news and a quick little survey. We have about, I don't know how many, decent number of people on the call. I'd like to say the first question I have is, are there any people on the call that are following QAnon? Anyone following QAnon?
Yes.
Hit and miss.
Yes.
Yes.
Somewhat. Somewhat.
Okay,
I am.
so a couple yes and a couple sometimes. Anyone on the call know what I mean when I say the Q map?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Anyone on the call know what the secret space program is?
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
Good. Okay. Thanks. I just wanted to get some understanding of where we are and what's going on. Is Russ on the call?
Yes, I'm here, Roger.
Russ, would you be interested in bringing us up to date on what we've learned about Rod's case, Rod Klass's case?
Yes, very briefly. I haven't even had a chance to look at the case. It's over 33 pages, the write-up. Rod Klass won a Supreme Court case today. It was handed down, which is a constitutional matter. It goes back 5 years ago when he was in Washington, D.C. to get his bounty hunter and or private attorney general papers signed by Congress, which I think is really the sergeant of arms. And he went there in his Jeep and parked, and when he came out, he was surrounded by yellow tape and policemen and gendarmes. And they made him go into his vehicle and show them that he had a gun in a bag that was sealed. It wasn't illegal. Everything was legal. But they took his guns and his Jeep and accused him of violating to have a gun on Capitol property. And there's no signs that say you can't. You don't really know when you're on Capitol property. And at one point, I don't know if it happened that day or not, but there was a case in the district court filed on that matter, and the district court threw the case out. They didn't think they really had a case, which they didn't. And then later on, the circuit court filed a case involving the same matter on their own. The court filed, no individual involved. And they didn't tell Rod. And he found out at the last minute, I guess, and he went into a hearing. And at that point, they arrested him, saying that, or he missed the original date, in fact, because they didn't even inform him that they had a case up. So he went in, and when he went in to face whatever he had to face at the time, they arrested him and put him in jail for several weeks. He had an ankle bracelet for about 18 months. He just told us recently that the reason he had the ankle bracelet because they didn't want him back in Washington, D.C., because they found out he knows what he's doing and he can beat them. So he got into the Circuit Court of Washington, D.C. This is all going back 5 years ago. And he researched everything well and fought them. And he went through 5 prosecutors and 5 judges. The last judge and prosecutor stayed on the case, but the other ones got off because they knew they were in deep trouble because they basically convicted themselves. The final judge told them, we know you've won this, but we can't let you out of here without getting something. So they forced them illegally, unlawfully, to plead. So he had to plead to a charge, which he did. So he was convicted, a gun charge primarily. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, Rod researched all this heavily and found out what the circuit courts were doing, and I can't even talk about it enough. It's so complicated. And when I'm in Rod's presence, I don't ask him much. I just listen to him. So I really haven't talked to him directly about this case, even though I was on a Zoom call with him last Saturday afternoon for 5.5 hours, learning how he's doing things. So they convicted him falsely, illegally, and he researched it and found out that the circuit court, he was going to appeal. The circuit court said he can't appeal. He found out that the circuit courts in this country were not doing the same way regarding appeals. So it became a constitutional, or is a constitutional matter. And today the Supreme Court basically said that it's a constitutional matter, and you can appeal any case, even if you admit guilt and admit to a charge. So that's where he's at right now. So he won 6-3. I haven't read the case. I don't even know who wrote the majority opinion now. Right now, I just learned about it from Roger at 6:30 today. So what it will have to do now probably is go back to the district court, who threw the case out at one point, and file against them and tell them that they did an unconstitutional matter. Probably go to the circuit court, do the same thing, and win those 2 cases. And then and if he wins those, which he should, because it's unconstitutional, the Supreme Court already said so, he will file tort claims against the parties involved, and there's a lot of them involved now. So there's a lot of work, not to be done yet, but great success. Rod is by far the best attorney, if you want to call him. I don't want to call him. He's the best lawyer in this country. He's phenomenal. He's coming from the administrative side, and he knows more. He knows better. He knows how to articulate everything when he's in their presence. So they fear him, which is good, and we're going to use him for a lot of reasons. I was on a training session last Saturday afternoon for 5.5 hours with him. He's up in Michigan right now, working with a group of people up there. So we hope to get a website together, or he is, and we've been trying to do that for a year and a half, and teaching programs on webinars, and start getting this information to more people and getting more of us trained, because he's pretty much by himself in this regard. So it's coming along. It takes an enormous amount of work. In his cases, when he files them, even at a lower level, and this does affect all levels of cases, everything all the way down to the county, you have to file a case usually 3 times, and they exhaust all your options, and then go to the next court and do the same thing there. So it literally takes years to get these things done. But you do win. There's no way they can stop it if you know what you're doing. So hopefully Rod might have a, what's the name of the shoe broadcast system, or some kind of presentation in the next week or so explaining what happened, what's going on. And I'll let you know, Roger, and you can broadcast that, and we'll get him on. I'd like to work with all you people. He needs your support. And he's good to listen to. I yield.
May I?
Yes.
2 things, but did you said it was a split decision, 6-3?
Correct.
Are we to assume that that 6 of the judges didn't know right from wrong? That's the way it's just amazing how they can have a split decision on something like that.
Well, we got a couple communists on the Supreme Court. They don't care about our country, our Constitution, nothing. I mean, these people are really bad. That's why.
Yeah.
I don't know where we'll have to read the case, which is 33 pages in the majority opinion, but there's people in our courts and our whole country and our government that are just wacky, really wacky.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I got one more. And then I'd heard that he hired a lawyer or an attorney or something.
No, they forced attorneys on him, but he ignores them. He says, I don't want them. He can stand there and listen, but he's not talking about my case. I am. He runs it himself. No, he has not. Okay. And there is no such a thing as a lawyer in a court. They're attorneys, and an attorney is not a lawyer.
I corrected myself right away.
Okay. Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, I yield. Thank you.
He did this all on his own. He went through 4 judges that left, quit, and prosecutors. And in fact, the judge that stood up, his name is Roberts. It's not the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, but that judge's name is Roberts, and he stayed in there. So, and they're all in deep trouble because they're doing unconstitutional, unlawful things. I yield.
If I may.
Someone else has? Go ahead.
Yeah. So, it was a 6-3. 6 in favor of Rod and 3 against Rod. And the crux of this really was that he wanted to appeal the decisions of the lower courts. And the lower court's arguments were that he had waived his right to a constitutional claim, which were due process and Second Amendment, by pleading guilty. And Rod made a case stating that that was not the case and took it up. And 6 Supreme Court justices agreed with him that you did not waive your rights by pleading guilty, okay, especially when you're under duress, okay, even though it's kind of alluded to in the paperwork but not actually said that way. So that's pretty much the importance of the case. And what that really means is that, well, let me just back up a little bit. So the 6 that were in favor of Rod's presentation and his argument were Breyer, Roberts, Ginsburg, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Gorsuch, and Alito, Kennedy, and Thomas dissented. Okay, so that was the 6-3. And the important thing about this really is that and I only kind of speed read the 33 pages that you mentioned, but what really is going on, what I can tell, looking at the keywords, kind of speed reading it, because it only came out today, not having a lot of time to analyze it, but is that this really is about individual property right claims, individual gun rights, okay, and the freedom to travel, okay? So in those 3 areas, this is going to probably unfold to be very beneficial for the average, I don't know what the proper word is, patriot or American state national or whatever you call yourselves, or, those of us that are the people, not the corporate, those of us that are in common law. So that's really what's really important about this is that, because his argument was due process and Second Amendment and right to travel freely. Travel part of it came in because he was coming outside of that jurisdiction, had the right to possess the firearm, was not on his person. It was in a non-posted area. It was only in his vehicle. And, so anyway, so everybody's playing dirty, whatever. But in the end, when you shine light on the dark, they got to go running. And that's kind of what Rod did. I feel.
Thank you, Don. We'll talk about it more further.
Yeah, and Russ, if Rod is going to bring an audience up to date, if you send it to me, I'll send it out.
Yes, very good. Thank you for letting us talk about it. This is wonderful.
Okay, the next subject, we have another quiz for us. Everybody on the phone, put on your thinking caps. How many, if you're an elected public official, non-judicial official in office in Florida, how many different oaths do you have to be lawful and legal?
2?
One.
One.
Higher.
Higher than 2?
Yep, higher.
4.
Would it be 3?
Higher.
3? Wow. Okay.
Wow.
4.
Wow. Are they identified by any of them?
You have to have 5. Let me explain.
Please.
The first oath you must take before you can become a candidate for office is found in Florida Constitution Article 6, Section 3, which is the oath to become an elector. And it does say you're going to support both constitutions. Okay, now you swear that oath or subscribe that oath, and now that's number 1. Number 2, in the Florida statutes, at statute 99.021, you've got to take another oath to become a candidate. Then, if you run for office and win, Florida statute 876.05 is an oath of office before you step into office. And then Florida Constitution at Article 2, Section 5B is an oath of office before you step into office. And then the U.S. Constitution at Article 6, Section 3 is an oath of office. So there's 2 before you win your election and 3 after you win your election. Any questions or comments?
I gotta go get some eat. Okay,
Is somebody speaking on the floor, please? Can't hear you.
May I?
Yes.
If I may.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, when you say there's 5, that's 5 different times they have to take it, where the first one is actually 2 oaths. Is that right?
I haven't studied every single word in every oath, but they all look like they're slightly different oaths.
Wow. I yield.
May I?
Yes.
Does that include the one when they want to be a candidate and they're filling out the paperwork they sign? Is that included in that?
Yes, the first step was the elector. The second is the candidate. The third is the statutory oath of office. The fourth is the Florida constitutional oath of office. And the fifth is the U.S. constitutional oath of office.
Very good. Thank you. I yield.
If I may.
Yes.
And the U.S. constitutional one is the corporate charter and not the common law. There's 3 actual U.S. constitutions, territorial, municipal, and original common law. So for the purposes of our interest, the U.S. Constitution that they're swearing to is not the one that we, the original. I yield.
Okay, so are you arguing there's a 6th, which is the common law oath of office?
Well, I'm saying there's 3 United States constitutions, and the one that they're taking an oath to is not the 4. It's the of.
Okay,
If I may.
If they were taking the de jure seat instead of the de facto seat, you're saying it would be a different oath, but it would replace the de facto oaths. Right?
That's correct. But yes, that would be proper for what we would be interested in. But when you say that they've taken an oath to the United States, that's not the United States for America, or it's not the original Constitution.
Right.
None of them take that, and that's my point.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, Bob, go ahead. Bob Root, you asked for the floor?
No, that was Hagan.
Hagan?
Yeah, are you including, I recall I did some research on this some time ago, but I don't remember exactly where they all were. But there was actually 6 oaths that were required to be taken. But are you forgetting the oath that they require you to take when you sign on to the voter registration?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that there's 6 oath requirements, but the one on the voter registration, if you register to vote, that oath is on there. They never have you actually do the oath, but they have you sign the document that says you did.
It says you said it or that you subscribe to it?
I don't recall exactly the verbiage on it. It's on the voter registration forms.
Yep.
But we did challenge the supervisor of elections here in Marion County on that, and I asked him how many of the people that he registered to vote had he sworn in according to that document, and it was 0. He hadn't sworn anybody in.
I think you're right, Hagan. I think it's 6. I'm wrong. Because according to the words, to become an elector, you first got to be registered as a voter.
But
which
that
is
voter
kind of strange
registration
because
did
in
not
my
come
affidavit
from
of
the...
suffrage, I revoked my voter registration and declared myself an elector.
Yeah, we did that here too. But the voter registration did not come with the Constitution. That come with the Reconstruction Acts in the 1860s.
Yep.
That was a Lincoln executive order.
I will advise you all that I had a conversation with the Manatee County Supervisor of Elections today on a subject that is reasonably important to me personally, but not necessarily in general. And the topic was what is the difference between a voter and an elector? And in the 6th article, section 1, 2, and 3 of the Florida Constitution, it makes it very clear there's a difference. But our supervisor of election claims that a registered voter is an elector, that there is no difference. So I'm going to have to elicit that from him in writing and then follow up with him to try to get that straightened out.
We also have that same thing here in Marion County. We have it in writing where he said exactly that.
May I?
Yes.
Who would be responsible to making sure these people take all the oaths?
In theory, there's divided responsibility. In front of winning an election, it would be, in my opinion, the supervisor of elections. Once you win the election, I think it shifts to the Secretary of State, I believe. But I don't know where it's defined, Mark. It's a good question.
I yield.
When I asked the supervisor of election, I demanded a copy of his oath today, and he said it's at the Secretary of State. And I said, okay, well, I believe you when your oath is demanded that you must produce it, and I'm asking you, I'm demanding it of you. And he said, well, put it in writing. So there's 6 oaths. He is only aware of 1 oath, and that's the one on the voter registration card. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. Just a couple of random things, and then we'll move on to Hagan. Sometimes you learn as you're doing some of this research, you learn some interesting things that aren't necessarily on topic, but because it is of broad interest, I thought I'd bring up 2 things. One is that there is a TED Talk. It's on YouTube, and TED Talks are, for me at least, very interesting talks put on by people who are experts in a given field. And this TED Talk was about, what is the optimum diet for human beings? The research work that went into the presentation took 1,000 people and measured their body's response at the blood glucose level to whatever they were eating. And they learned a profound piece of knowledge, which is all of these proposed diets that claim to be optimal aren't, because the best diet, according to this study, is a diet that does not cause your blood glucose to spike. And there's two reasons why you don't want your eating to spike your blood glucose. One is that it damages your organs and your arteries. And the second is that when the blood glucose crashes, you feel hungry, like you got to eat some more, so you eat some more calories. So in essence, their research found that the optimal diet for humans is one that is customized to your genetics and your biome, that is the bugs in your digestive tract. And they've figured out a way, kind of like an algorithm that Amazon uses to recommend books to you, that is useful for helping to really tune in your diet to your genetics and your biome. Second subject that came across my desk this week is that there is a scientific study published by 3 scientists in Italy who took a vast amount of different, let's put it this way, many different vaccines. And the question that they're trying to answer is there some kind of contamination in these vaccines that could be causing problems for human beings? They took a very careful scientific approach to filter the liquid out of the vaccine and evaporate it, and then use the most modern electron microscope that can measure the smallest amount of material and figure out what was left on the filter after the liquid had evaporated. They found every single vaccine was contaminated, and it had lead particles in some of them, it had tungsten particles in some of them, it had crystalline material in some of them. All of this contamination was inorganic, not made of carbon molecules. And according to their research, they believe that it will cause immune system reactions, and ultimately could trigger autoimmune effects. So those are two just general issues that came up. Then I want to ask, about 10 or 15 years ago, what was the motto that you used to see on the side of the police or the sheriff deputy cars?
Protect and serve.
What was the motto?
May I?
Yes, please.
To protect and serve?
Or to serve and protect, right? Either way.
Correct.
The question that I've got now that struck me is, to serve and protect who? Is it to serve and protect the people or the ruling class?
The people.
I think they're all on the payroll of the ruling class today, and it's a rare bird who sees his role is to protect the people. And there are more and more circumstances where even 2 or 3 years ago, one of our guys talked with a number of deputies who were on the force in a county in Florida, and they knew nothing about the Constitution whatsoever. They knew nothing that their role was to protect the rights of the people, and they were totally for enforcing statutes. So that begs the question, to serve and protect who? And I'm afraid the answer today is not the people, it's the ruling class. Another quick nugget. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so the ones that don't know me, my name is Andy. I run COPWATCH here in Sherritt County for 5 years, and that is why I run COPWATCH, because the corruption happened to me, and Dodell is absolutely correct. It's not about us anymore. It's about them, and it's completely out of control. So I just wanted to step in and say that's why I do what I do. I try to hold them accountable. That's why it's called COPWATCH. We are watching them. Who is policing the police? As you know, with people with unlimited power, if you let them have the unlimited power comes corruption, and it is just, that's why it's all the way from the FBI all the way down to here. I yield.
If I may.
Yes.
So then who are we to expect to protect and serve us? And the only constitutional authorized agency, if you will, is a sheriff. Anyone that's a member of a police, Police, drop the E and put a Y, that's policy enforcement. None of those, anybody in blue is a policy enforcer. Anybody in green is supposed to, at least in today's environment, hold two hats, one on the people protection and one on the policy side. And they're supposed to use discernment as to when to apply policy or common law protection. And they're supposed to base that upon the position of the person in question, meaning if I'm standing there and saying, no, I'm a people, then they're supposed to put on the hat of common law as in terms of a sheriff. If they're standing there and saying, well, no, this, that, and the other thing, and then they could go ahead and move and do their job with policy or whatever, because they hold two hats, unfortunately, and they're not supposed to hold the two hats, the sheriffs, that is. But that said, anybody in blue is a policy enforcer, policies or statutes, codes, rules, regulations, et cetera, and any other, code violations or whatever you want to call them. And those people have no constitutional basis for their attempt to contract with you. I yield.
May I?
What's that? Yes.
Russ, according to Ron Cleft, I just learned this from him. There was a law passed in Delaware, I don't know how many years ago, 75, whatever, and all the states have taken it on. And the only three duties a sheriff has now, he's not the chief law enforcement officer anymore. He has three authorities. One is to run the jail. Two is to manage the bailiffs in the courtroom. And three is to issue documents, papers, subpoenas, and that to the people. He does not have the authority to arrest you on the street. So we're not covered by anybody, based on what Don just said. The coverage is our Second Amendment and the militia, us.
Yeah, if I may, I agree with you. I agree with you that the de facto has taken that position and has put that into the job description. However, there has no been repeal of the constitutional authority of the sheriff. So that said, they've got bad information, but nothing has been, they can pass a statute, code, rule, or regulation if they want to say, and I agree with what Rod said, it is factual, you just claimed it, but it's not constitutional, which means that it really has no relevance to, and it changes nothing. No one has yielded the rights to any private corporation to uphold a policy against people. They can do it to their members, people who willingly stand up and say that they are United States citizens and joined that club. Yeah, but those who separate themselves have the rights and the protections, and there's been no repeals of any of those rights. So if you've corrected your political status and you can stand in your space and say, I'm a people and not a person or an individual or any of the other craziness that they've created to contract with you, then you are entitled to those benefits of the original Constitution. And the sheriff is the only one that's actually sworn, supposed to be sworn to that. Now, there's actually states, like I think up in New England somewhere, a couple of them, and I'm not sure which one it is, New England, in New England somewhere like Connecticut or one. They don't even have sheriffs and counties anymore up there. I mean, they totally eliminated them.
Connecticut.
Connecticut. Yeah, so,
Wow.
so that's like, a real step. I mean, now you're talking about, this is an original colony that's eliminated the sheriff. So that tells you what's going on there. But anyway, that said, you have to correct your political status. If you stand in your space, the sheriff is supposed to honor it. Never argue with a policeman, somebody that's in blue, because they are not bound in any way, shape, or form. Even the SCOTUS has even said that they are not obligated to protect you at all, because they're just private corporations. Okay, so you don't argue with the man in blue. You may have an opportunity to make a case with a man in green if they understand, which is going to be like a 10 or 20% of the time. So yeah, we got big issues that have to be corrected. I yield.
Okay, to the point of this discussion, I'd like to bring everybody's attention to a website that has articles on it that are very different point of view than what you'll find in the mainstream media. The name of the website is whatdoesitmean.com. Whatdoesitmean.com. And what caught my eye is not only the stories, and some of which seem to be coming out of the intelligence network in Russia, but also down at the bottom every day they have a total, and let me just give you let me ask you, from 2015 through 2017, Americans killed by terror, 178. Americans killed by their own police, 3,388.
Correct.
178 from terror, 3,388 by our own police. So far this year, according to their tally, 4 Americans killed by terror, 170 Americans killed by their own police. So it's about 3 to 4 people per day are being killed by the police.
May I?
Yes.
Roger, is that a calculation that would also include different places around the country where there were riots, so there were several people that were killed through the riots, and not just...
I didn't hear your last piece of the question.
Does that also include instances where there were riots in the different cities, so there were several people killed as a result of that, rather than just direct, maybe assault from the police?
It's a good question. I can't answer it. They don't really give you easy details to look into, but I'm sure there must be an answer to it, but I don't know how to answer it.
If I may?
Yes.
If I may? So,
yes.
Just based upon the question, a city, a municipality, a municipal government, and the word police, none of those things are constitutional. So if they, regardless of if it was a riot or not, police killing people is the problem. And these are police. Anytime you hear the word police, you have to really just always change it, at least for me, I change it into my mind, policy. Okay, because a policy is just a corporate policy, right? So that's what municipal and territorial governments that are contracted by we the people have unfortunately, turned themselves into these unconstitutional
tyrants, and there they are, killing people. I mean, okay. So every now and again, and I don't watch main media or anything like that, but I pass by people that are on Facebook, and they're all excited about, look at this, it's a cop chase out here in Los Angeles, and here's a cop chase out there, and this, and they're chasing people down. Now, these people, why are they escalating somebody driving 90, 100 miles an hour down a road, sending 10 police cars down the street to chase down somebody because the guy's running because you don't want to get caught because he owes child support? Is that really justifiable? And then they shoot him sometimes and kill him because the guy came out and he came at me fastly, or whatever. They make up excuses. So that's the difference between a constitutional perspective and a policy enforcer. Okay. So when I think the data that Roger is talking about has to do with police, and even though there are sheriffs and policy enforcement, none of it. Listen, we shouldn't be killing people. Okay, 3,000. How many people got killed in Vietnam? You know what I mean? We're talking 65,000 over 15 years. Okay, I mean this is worse than the Vietnam War, right? I mean, and this is happening on our own, land jurisdiction. It shouldn't be happening at all. I stand down.
Okay, last point. I'd like to move on. You can't find this unless you look very hard in the mainstream media, but there was a historic agreement joining the U.S. and Russian intelligence operations together. And let me just read you one paragraph. A breathtaking new Security Council report circulating in the Kremlin today reveals that the latest triumph of the visit of Foreign Intelligence Service Director Sergei Narshinkin, Federal Security Service Director Alexander Bordnakov, and Main Intelligence Directorate Director Colonel General Igor Korobov to the United States this past fortnight, where these three heads of Russia's top intelligence agencies all visited the U.S. simultaneously for the first time in recorded history, was just hours ago when President Donald Trump communicated to President Putin his agreement to join American intelligence operations with those of the Russian-backed Collective Security Treaty Organization. So you can read a lot more details about it if you'd like, but it's a fundamental step. In my opinion, it's the catalyst is that our main intelligence and police forces at the federal level, being the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, have major internal corruption problems. Very, very significant internal corruption problems that forced President Trump to look for an alternative and build an alternative that would work. And that's what I think this is one step of doing that. If you listen to the mainstream media, you will hear that we need to look at Russia and China as enemies, but all of the evidence I can find tells me that President Trump, President Putin, and President Xi of China are working together as a team to take down the cabal, the banking cabal. And they are helping each other and guarding each other's back as best I can tell. Okay, Hagen, would you like to talk about the notice of liability and the possibility of using it inside a county? Hagen.
Wake up, Hagen.
Okay, Hagen, if you're not there, Bob Root, is there any news from Terry? Okay, if not, I'd like to go to open mic. Open mic, any subject, just ask for the floor.
May I?
Yes.
Yeah, Roger, this is Pam. Is there any way that we can get a link to that article that you were talking about with the United States and Russian operations?
Sure, I'll send it out as soon as we finish the call.
Thank you. I yield.
You're welcome. The article, by the way, is dated February 8th, so this is not brand new news. Yes, you have the floor.
Yes, this is Andy with Shire County COPWATCH again. Mark Schmittner said to mention that he's known me for a couple of years, that Dell's known me for a couple of years, and I've been working on holding the sheriff and police accountable here for 5 years, basically 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day doing articles here of corruption, of police corruption, and then articles of corruption with police nationwide. And I do not make any money. YouTube has cut off tons of people like me that my main thing is YouTube, then Facebook, websites, Twitter, all of that. And so I do not make any money. And Mark wanted me to mention to you guys if anybody can donate, that would be great. I do have, buttons for donate on the YouTube channel, but it's what's sad is a lot of people that follow my YouTube channel on police corruption have been affected by police, and the police have taken all their money, so they have no money to give. So I do admit I am blessed. My wife have a cleaning company. We are debt free, and we're not getting rich. But donations would be great. I yield.
Okay, Andrew, and you're on Facebook or a separate website?
On Facebook or YouTube, all you got to do is type in Charlotte County COPWATCH, and you'll see my videos. Facebook, you'll see my page, and I believe both of them have links on there for PayPal donate or Patreon donate. And or you can also see what we do is, as Dell knows and Mark knows, is we're not just doing stories. We are actually we're busting corruption here, and we have tons of people giving tips in on the corruption, and we've broken so many stories here. It's not even funny. Ones that they were going to bury because they knew it made them look bad, because they want everybody to think that they're good and that they do no wrong at all, which is absolutely not true. So just as we all fight corruption with the government, remember our police are government. They are just as corrupt as our government, and actually worse because they have police power. I yield.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Roger, talking about Charlotte County, what's the next move for the state of Florida common law grand jury?
Well, the process server served the order for the demand from the grand jury for the oaths and the bonds, and there was a 14-day period where they had to be produced. That 14-day period ends this coming Friday.
Wow.
Day after tomorrow. Okay, and then what happens?
It depends on what happens if they produce the oaths and bonds or not. And then it also will depend upon taking whatever evidence comes back to the grand jury and the grand jury administrators for them to decide. I can tell you in most cases, if a grand jury's order for producing oaths and bonds is not complied with, that's a criminal act.
And it'd be a criminal act from who? I mean, from the county or the individuals?
From everybody that was served with the order to produce their oath and bond.
Okay. And can you divulge who it was, or we got to wait it was served?
Yeah, I don't have that information, but I am planning to get it soon. But I don't have it in my possession. I can tell you that it was multiple people in the county government. I believe it covered the sheriff, some of the deputies involved, the clerk of the court, the judge involved, the prosecutor involved, and some other people.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic. I yield.
Open mic, any subject.
May I?
Yes.
So I am extremely excited. You just told me more information I did not know, that all those people were served. So there again, that's why Mark Schmittner and Dodell had me call in on this call, because like they said, this happened here. I've been working on corruption here for 5 years. So this is where I can, take these, I can document this story step by step on YouTube, Facebook, on what's going, how, and why, and, teach people that they do have rights, just like what you're doing with this, asking for the surety bond and the oath of office. This, I cannot wait to see what happens on this. I yield.
Okay, any news coming out of Highlands County? Highlands. No. Bob Root, are you on? Any news from Terry? Okay, open mic, any subject?
If I may,
Yes.
I didn't get in quite quick enough about Gilmore, but the only thing I have is I wonder if you had a chance at all to look at that document I sent you on the Gladio NATO, on some of the stuff going on in the country with all these school shootings and everything.
Bob, could you speak up a little bit?
I just wondered if you had a chance to read the article I forwarded to you and Hagan yesterday on the Gladio NATO.
I haven't, but I will look it up and I will get back to you.
Okay, because it really fits in with a lot of the stuff we're doing, and it's very
okay, and what was
article.
the subject?
Well, the subject is that the FBI is behind everything that's gone on in this country for the last several years, and it goes into great detail on, for instance, the 9/11, and the other one is the school shooting that just happened this week, that they're the ones pushed behind it all.
Yep.
But
okay.
But just read it, and if you think it's interesting, put it out to the people.
Okay, will do.
That's all I got going on. I yield.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I've been hearing quite a little about it was all a staged thing down there in Florida. Like nobody was shot. I just can't imagine. I can imagine the young fella that did the shooting being turned into a Manchurian candidate by a psychiatrist and psychotropic drugs. But I just can't imagine that all being, the sheriff and it's all. Is it your thought that that's all staged? That nobody actually was, that it didn't happen the way we're told?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
So there's some investigators that have looked into this. We can't find birth certificates for any of the names.
Don, could you get closer to your mic, please?
Sure. Investigators looking into the case. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. So investigators looking into the case. The alleged victims, no one can find a birth certificate or registration as if these people exist, first of all. Secondly, a scan of all local hospitals cannot find corpses or any responses in any local hospitals in the area. And so that's the basis for those claims. I yield.
President Trump, it is my understanding, has ordered a military investigation because there are a bunch of anomalies. Don just talked about some of them. It's not clear if there were true injuries or not, or deaths or not, but there is a book, a free downloadable book called No One Died at Sandy Hook. That was in New Jersey. And it's a very well-researched and well-written book. And it was being sold by Amazon, and then Amazon stopped selling it. So I'd recommend, if you have any interest to learn how they do these things, you might want to download that book, Nobody Died at Sandy Hook. And in this particular case, we do know there's some pretty good evidence that they have deployed crisis actors, which does not necessarily mean that no one got killed just because the crisis actors are there. But there was early testimony that I saw that a high school female student claimed she was in the hallway talking to the so-called shooter when the shots started to be fired, and he was not near where the shots were being fired and did not have any weapon with him.
Oh.
So whether that testimony stands up or not, I don't know. In the case of Nevada, the shooting in Nevada, roughly 10 people who have stood up and testified that there were multiple shooters and that the police report and the media report were not true, right. About 10 of them have died mysteriously in different types of accidents, cars blowing up, all kinds of problems.
Yep.
May I?
Yes.
I have a question that I hope somebody can answer. Is if there is a deceased in a county, do they have to publicize that? I know the FBI does, but that's a whole year later. But do they have to put it in the local newspaper or something to notify that somebody is dead over? Yeah.
Good question. I don't know the answer. Does anyone know if there is a legal statutory requirement in Florida to publish a death notice?
If I may?
Yes.
The lady first, thank you.
I'm not sure on the answer to that, but I would check with the Social Security Death Index database. I haven't been there myself, but I'm looking at something right now, and I'm going to see if I can find it, and I will get back with the group. I yield.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, so the coroner is not only a common law officer, but holds the du jour as well. And they're paid allegedly publicly. And as such, any activity of a coroner is required under the Sunshine Law and other various things, at least in this state. But any expenditure of public dollars is a public matter, and so there should be obituaries published. There should be coroner's reports published and available, and there are things that are missing. Thank you.
To those of you that do follow the FBI statistics, it's my understanding that after the Sandy Hook, when the FBI statistics came out of the murders around the country, there were 0 murders reported in the zip codes in and around Sandy Hook.
Yep.
May I?
Yes.
In the case of Sandy Hook, it has since been removed from the website, but Homeland Security had posted on their website I just lost the word. A notice of an event. They were doing a practice affair 20 minutes from Sandy Hook that very day. This is what spawned so many people to get curious and start checking. They had that place roped off. There's just too many things, and that goes for the shooting in the movie theater in Colorado. If you take the time and sit down and really do your research, and with everything else that we know that's going on, trust our government? No way. I yield.
If I may?
Yes.
Without giving you an awful lot of detail, Roger, that article that I sent you goes into great detail explaining all these different things and how they were handled by the FBI and how they, like, for instance, the one in Florida here, it really happened, but how they maneuvered this shooter into being a bad guy. Like, they altered his medicine and all kinds of things.
You do that.
I won't go into a lot of detail, but read that article, and if you think it's important, send it out to people.
That's what I'm going to go.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I would like to anyone that's interested
30 days.
do a search and do research on the Voice of God technology. Wait a minute, somebody's talking here.
I don't know, 441. When Marlo went in.
Voice of God technology has to do with the ability to remotely focus on a target and cause them to hear voices within their head.
Jesus.
Doesn't surprise me.
40.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
In the beginning of the show or whatever, you mentioned that anybody heard of the secret space program or something?
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate? You know, you didn't go into that at all.
Okay. I'd highly recommend everybody take a look at it if you're interested. Let me tell you what I comprehend about it. There was a lady named Catherine Austin Fitts, F-I-T-T-S. She was a finance lady, very sharp. She was the Undersecretary of Housing and Urban Development under Bush #1. When she went into the position, she asked to see the financial reports. They didn't have any. So she brought in a private sector financial report team, and they constructed the financial reports. She discovered that although Congress passes the budget for each agency rebates 10% of their budget to the secret space program. Not even the president knows what's going on in it. It was started since 1946, so think about the pile of money representing by 10% of the federal budget since 1946 being plowed into a secret space program. A few years into the program, there was a corporate effort, a cooperative effort between the Air Force and the Navy. The Air Force went a different direction due to the influence of the Nazis that had been imported under Operation Paperclip from Germany before the end of the war. So the Navy split off and did its own secret space program. They have solved an awful lot of technical problems, including zero-gravity machines. After they had fully developed a capability in space, including motherships and attack ships and transport ships, they invited a science fiction writer named Ray Bradbury in to see what the Navy had developed as far as a space fleet. They told Ray that they wanted him to write about it to inform the public using science fiction, but if he ever told anybody that the Navy actually had this capability, they would deny it. So if you recall watching any of the Star Wars movies, an awful lot of that technology, not all, but an awful lot of that technology has been developed and is in service. There are major underground facilities in the country, and we don't have as much capability as other entities in space do. And that can be a whole other subject. How many other entities are there in space? Some of which are much more intelligent and capable than humans. But at any rate, that's what I know about the secret space program. Starting about 3 years ago in Southern California, they started a conference on the secret space program, and engineers and scientists and physicists, etc., that have worked on the program would present papers about their understanding about the program. And slowly but surely, they're able to put together a pretty good picture of what's going on. So if you want to see any of the YouTube videos, just look up the Secret Space Program Conference that's held once a year, I think in Monterey, California, or someplace like that. I yield.
May I?
Yes.
Roger, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now. Donald and I sat and watched a 2 to 2.5 hour YouTube that was done several years ago, but it was a variety of different former Air Force that had worked out there in Utah at that base, and they were describing how they had seen the aliens and the different things that had gone on. If you're open enough, and I think we're all learning that we need to open up our minds to all kinds of possibilities these days, if you go to one of my websites, which is americasdirtylaundry.com, and you go to the link marked The Awakening, there is, first of all, a video on there that you need to watch that's a couple hours long on the book, Behold a Pale Horse. And I know a lot of people think that David Wilcock is a real nut job. But if you listen to these videos and the facts and the people that are involved and the research that's actually going on, they talk about what you just said, Roger, the money that's being taken from the budget every year that's not accounted for, which is going into the space program. And, of course, now they've even found things down in Antarctica. So it's just another hint to open up your mind and know that the possibility of almost anything is out there. I yield.
You can also do some more research, thank you, some more research about President Eisenhower having a secret meeting and coming to an agreement with some ETs to gain access to military technology in return for allowing the ETs to experiment on a certain number of humans. It turns out that we have been deceived, in my opinion, deceived very badly about the history of our planet, the history of our species, about numerous suppressed technologies that include the cure for cancer, the anti-gravity capability, the zero-point energy capability, an awful lot of technologies that have been suppressed. And ultimately, I don't think we're that far from what people are calling the event. And for those of you that aren't aware of it, I will send out a link about a website and a Facebook page for Prepare for Change, But the event is going to include 3 main points. Number 1, mass arrests. Well, we already know in the PACER system there are 13,600 sealed indictments. People are estimating 20 to 30,000 likely arrests. In addition, we do know, although it's not through mainstream media, that since President Trump has been in office, we have spent over $200 million upgrading Guantanamo Bay. The theory is that some of the worst offenders will be charged with treason, which requires 2 witnesses, and will be tried in military tribunals in Guantanamo Bay. The second piece of the event is going to be massive disclosure and exposure. Disclosure about the true history of our planet, the history of our species, and exposure of the suppressed technologies as well as the evilness built in to many of the institutions and the people that we have been taught to trust. And then the third plank of the event will be a new financial system, no longer a fiat money system, a money system that is constitutionally compliant and will be built on substance. So those 3 things are due in the near-term future. Is it going to happen next month? Who knows? Is it going to happen next year? Don't know. The indications that I have seen is that it is likely in the next few months that we are going to hit some rough times, that I would highly recommend that everybody make sure you've got 3 to 6 months worth of food and capable of sourcing water, and you've got your extra gas tanks in your garage or whatever you decide you need. Because we all know that history has proven that fiat currencies cannot last forever. We know that the debt is up to 21 trillion or thereabouts, and it's only a matter of time before the people lose confidence. And that can be catalyzed by anything, including a spike of inflation. So at the bottom line, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but the probabilities are very, very high that it is going to happen, and it's not too distant in the future. We're running past 8:30. Last call for questions or comments. If not, thank you very much for your support. Have yourself a great night. Look forward to talking with you next week. Good night, all.
Travel safe, everybody.
Good meeting. Thanks, Roger.
Good night.
County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month.
that would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.